Welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege to read Parshas Pinchas. And I want to draw your attention to a fascinating moment, because it's not a story, it's not an episode. Rather, it's an occurrence in the Parsha, in the beginning of Parashah Vav, the beginning of chapter 26. The Torah says as follows, Vahi acharei magefa, and it was after the plague. Now, which plague are we referring to? So remember again, if we go back to the end of Parashas Balak, after Bilam failed to curse the Jewish people, he gives Balak a piece of advice, an eitzah. Essentially, lure the Jews into a web of immorality and they will compromise and abdicate their lofty spiritual standing. So again, Balak complies, and ultimately the Jews get drawn into inappropriate relations, immoral conduct with the Moabite women. As a result of this widespread immorality, a plague set in within the ranks of the Jewish people. When did the plague stop? The plague stopped ultimately again after Pinchas stood up and took decisive action. He went ahead and killed Zimri and killed Cosbi, put an end to the immorality, and ultimately put an end to the plague. So the Torah says, "Vahi acharei magefa," and it was after the plague. Vayomer Hashem Moshe. Hashem says to Moshe and to Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen Loimar. So Hashem speaks to Moshe and Aaron and Elazar HaKohen. Fine. What does he say? Pasuk Beis. Sulas Rosh Kaladas b'nei Yisrael miben esim shana v'mala. Count the Jewish people. Count the Jewish men from the ages of 20 and above. Lebeis savosam kol yotzei tzava b'Yisrael. Anyone who's ready to go out to war. Okay. Pasuk Gimel. Vaydaber Moshe ve'Elazar HaKohen osam ba'avos Moav al yedei Reicho lemar. Moshe and Elazar, they spoke to the Jewish people saying, miben esim shana v'mala. From 20 years and above, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has commanded us to count the Jews who have left Mitzrayim. And then the Torah then goes on to discuss the count. It goes tribe by tribe. And remember again, each tribe is made up of multiple Batei Avos, multiple families. And so again, the structure is we go through the tribes, through the families in that particular tribe, and then we arrive at a sum total of the number of men above the age of 20. And when you take a step back, now I know out of all the incredible things that are happening in the parasha, this doesn't really seem to be that dramatic, except the problem is, at first glance, it doesn't seem to make sense. Question number one, Vahi acharei magefa. It was after the plague. Now, remember again, the plague already stopped a while ago. Remember again, up until now, what we've seen in the beginning of the parasha is HaKadosh Baruch Hu rewarding Pinchas for his religious zealotry. Again, not to be tried at home. That's not the paradigm for us. But for Pinchas, in that moment, it was the right form of behavior. So the parasha begins already again with the reward for Pinchas. Remember, the plague already stopped at the end of last week's parasha. When Pinchas took action, the plague stopped. And now already we've spoken about the reward for Pinchas. So now for some reason the Torah has to say, and it was after the plague. It was after the plague. That's question one. Question two is that the pasuk says that Moshe and Elazar HaKohen spoke to the Jewish people. This is in pasuk Gimel, verse 3 in chapter 26. Vaydaber Moshe Elazar HaKohen osam ba'avos Moav. Moshe and Elazar, who was the Kohen Gadol, spoke to the Jewish people by the banks of the Jordan River, Lamar, saying. The problem is, the Torah doesn't seem to tell us what they said. Doesn't tell us. The Torah just restates the obligation to count. Then it says from 20 years and above. So you could understand it to mean that they're telling over the Jewish people the directive, but that's not really how the pasuk reads. So what is it that is actually unfolding over here? First of all, what's the point of the census? Why the need to count the Jewish people again now? Why the need to mention that this is after the plague? And at the end of the day, what are Moshe and Elazar HaKohen saying to the Jewish people? And the great tzaddik Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, Zechusa Yagin Aleinu, makes an amazing observation. The Rebbe says that when you look at the counting of the tribes, specifically when you look at the counting of the families, you'll notice something very interesting. The Torah adds on 2 letters. For example, Torah seeks out the tribe of Reuven, and when it goes to Reuven, it says, Chanoch mishpachas hachanochi, lefalu mishpachas hapulai. Says the name of the family, and then it restates the name of the family again with a hey at the beginning and a yud at the end. Yud and hey, the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Rabbi Nachman says as follows. He says, listen to these words. Hosif l'chol echad mi Yisrael hey the yud mishmo. Ultimately, again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu added on a Yud and a Hey for each of the families of each of the tribes. Lomar Shmi Meid Alehem, to say that my name ultimately testifies for them. The Rebbe goes on and he explains something absolutely amazing. You see, in the aftermath of catastrophic mistakes, in the aftermath, ultimately again, of devastating life failure, we often think that we've been rendered incompetent. I've made such a mistake, I've made such a wrong turn in life, that there is no hope for me. There's no salvation for me. And even if I could somehow pull it back together, it's never going to be the same. No, Chavra, haven't we all had moments like this? Where you make a mistake in life and you feel so broken that you say to yourself, you know what? I know my life is not over, but I know that this mistake has forever changed the trajectory of my life. I will never be able to recapture that lost potential. I'll never be able to recapture those lost opportunities and lost abilities. Says the Rebbe something amazing. How was Klal Yisrael feeling at the end of Parshas Balak? They were lured into immorality with the daughters of Moab. Public immorality. You had a tribal prince who was engaging in public immorality with a Moabite princess. These are the Jews that left Mitzrayim. These are the Jews who said Na'aseh v'nishma, or the nation that left Mitzrayim, the nation that said Na'aseh v'nishma, the nation that consumed man every single morning, the nation who was shielded by the cloud of HaKadosh Baruch Hu every single night and every single day. The cloud by day, the fire by night. They lived under the protective wing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They got to converse with Moshe Rabbeinu, who was often more angel than man. And they engaged in all of this public immorality. When you read this story, you think to yourself, okay, guys, you are done. You are done. You know what? It's not even like 3 strikes, you're out. This is like 17th strike already. And this is it. This is the end of the road. And so what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? Right as we are feeling so terrible about ourselves, right as we are feeling down and out, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell Moshe Rabbeinu? He says to Moshe, here's what I want you to do. Su'u es rosh kaladas b'nei Yisrael. Count the people. Count the people. Now what's the point? Why do you have to count the people? Why? Kol yotzei sava b'Yisrael. Remind them that they are still capable of waging the battles of life. You lost the battle. Yeah, you lost the big battle, Klal Yisrael. You should have fought harder against the immorality. You should have fought harder back against the desires for the daughters of Moab. You lost a battle, but you didn't lose the war. You didn't lose the war. Moshe, remind them that they could pick themselves up, dust themselves off, regroup, and they could go out to war. There's still more of life's war to be waged. And just because you lose a battle does not render you incompetent to fight the rest of the war. Vayidaber, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. Hashem says to Moshe, here's what I want you to do. Su'u es rosh kaladas b'nei Yisrael. Go and count them. Why? Why are you counting them? Kol yotzei sava b'Yisrael. Remind them, you could pick yourself, you lost the battle, but you didn't lose the war. Pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and do what has to get done to regain your footing in life. And says the Rebbe something amazing. What's the next pasuk? So remember again our second question? Pasuk says that Moshe and Elazar spoke to the Jewish people, but it doesn't say what they spoke. What did they say? But the answer is in pasuk Daled. Moshe and Elazar say, "Mi ben esrim shana v'mala." We're counting you. That's what they're saying. We're counting you. And Klal Yisrael, why are we counting you? We're counting you because you still matter. We're counting you because you're still able to go out to battle. We're counting you because even though you lost the battle, you didn't lose the war. So if you're a member of Klal Yisrael, say, come on. Nah, that's not true. Moshe, Elazar, you're just being nice. We did. Some mistakes are so terrible that you can't rebound from them. So here is where the Ribono Shel Olam steps in, says Rabbi Nachman. And the Ribono Shel Olam attaches his name, his Yud, and his Hey to each of our family names. It's not Chanoch, it's Chanochi. It's not Palu, it's Palui. It's not Chetzron, it's Chetzroni. It's not, right? Again, we get the point. HaKadosh Baruch Hu steps in because he realizes that maybe Klal Yisrael doesn't believe Moshe and Elazar. Moshe and Elazar, sometimes, people just say stuff to make you feel good, but they don't really mean it. They don't really mean it. Moshe and Elazar are trying to make us feel good. They're trying to make us feel better about our devastating, catastrophic failure. We're down and out. We're never rebounding. Here is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu steps in and says, my dear children, I will attach my name to yours. And there's only one reason I'll attach my name to yours, because I believe in you. Because I believe in you. Because even though you lost the battle, you didn't lose the war. Says Rabbi Nachman, that's the point of this census. It's not to know how many Jews there were. We know how many Jews there were, right? Take the number from the last census, subtract the number of people that died in the plague. We know how many people there were. The point of the census was to remind Klal Yisrael that you're still capable of going out to battle in life. You're still capable of waging the war to get to the finish line, to get to the goal of success. Just because you lose a battle doesn't mean you win a war. And if you doubt yourself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll attach my name to you. That's the incredible lesson that Moshe and others are trying to convey to Klal Yisrael. The incredible lesson of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And dear friends, what a profound lesson for us. And what a profound lesson, especially during these days. Thursday, today, is Shivasar B'Tammuz, the beginning of the 3 weeks. And what do we commemorate during the 3 weeks? We commemorate failure. That's really what we commemorate. We lost the first and second Batei Mikdash because we failed. Whether it's that we failed with the Gimel Chamuros, Gilei Arayos, immorality, Shvichus Damim, murder, Avodah Zarah, idolatry, or the second Beis Hamikdash, we failed with sinas, chinam, baseless hatred, whatever it was, we failed. We failed. And dear friends, for 2,000 years, over 2,000 years, we still have not regained our Beis Hamikdash. We yearn and we pine for the Bayis Shlishi each and every day, and we haven't gotten it back yet. It's going to come any moment, but yet. These are days in which a person could feel like a failure. These are days in which we could feel like a failure as a nation, we could feel like a failure as individuals. And there are times in life where we make such dramatic mistakes that I look in the mirror and I say to myself, you are a failure. Now you've really done it. Now there's no point you've gone past the point of return. You're done. And then we open up Parshas Pinchas, which we're reading on this week of Shivasar B'Tammuz, the beginning of the 3 weeks. And we are reminded that no matter how many battles in life you lose, just remember that the Ribono Shel Olam always attaches his name to ours. And as long as his great name is attached to our names, even though it's just a basic mortal name, no matter how many battles in life I lose, I have the ability to get back up, dust myself off, and continue to fight the war. That's the message of Parshas Pinchas. It's the message for these 3 weeks, and it's the message for our lives. It would be wonderful to think that we'll never lose battles, but that is not the nature of the human condition. We will always lose battles. But when we find the koach from the name of the Ribbon Shalom, which attaches itself to our names, then in the aftermath of those lost battles, don't give up, don't give in, get back up, and continue to fight. Wishing everyone a good night of Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.